In addition to those two excerpts from the Epic of Gilgamesh, the other thing that you're supposed to read for tomorrow is a portion, or actually skim through the entirety of Hammurabi's Law Code. So Hammurabi's Code is not the oldest set of laws in the world, but it is the oldest one that we have access to that still exists. And it goes back to about 1800 BC, so about 4,000 years ago. It was created in the same general area, Mesopotamia, as where the Sumerians had lived, although by this point the Sumerians are gone and they've been replaced by a new society, a new civilization known as the Babylonians, who at this point are governed by a king known as Hammurabi. And Hammurabi sets up this law code on what's known as a stela, a huge statue, 8 foot tall, carved out of metamorphic rock, and it's placed smack dab in the middle of the city so that everybody can walk by and see it and read it, and if they couldn't read it, somebody could read it to them. The top of it is this image here on this slide, and the image portrays Shamash, the OG god, the serious god in Babylonian society, giving Hammurabi this code of laws. So, with the Epic of Gilgamesh, we've got a story that teaches values. But if you think about what laws can tell us about a society, they can also tell us what a society as a whole values, right? Laws are created to modify or to curb behavior, and they're often created after somebody does something that people recognize is problematic and continuously happens. This is a wacky one, but one of my favorite examples is that there's a law on the books in California that you can't shoot a whale from a moving vehicle. That's weird. Why would that be a law? Because somebody probably tried to shoot a whale from a moving vehicle at some point, and so that needs to get put on the books so that nobody does it before. Nobody does it again. I was getting ahead of myself because we're about to get a little risque. So there's also a law on the books in several states, especially southern states, that, believe it or not, regulates the positions in which individuals can have sex. And if you're like me, you don't want the government or police officers looking in your bedroom, but you can probably guess what position is allowed. And it takes the name that's a pretty conservative name of a missionary position. And you can laugh at it and think that that's kind of goofy, but if you step back and say, okay, most of the people who created these laws in early colonial eras, in times where there were distinct gender roles, where men were seen as superior to inferior women. And if you think about who's where in what position, that's very much a metaphor for it. Or if you think about the names that other positions get, I know I'm getting weird here, they relate to animals, and humans aren't supposed to act like animals. So regulating so that people don't have sex the way that, say, dogs have sex tells you something about values and tells you something about how individuals in that society see themselves. That's a weird way to get into Hammurabi. You don't have to read all of the laws because there's a lot of them. Instead, what I would like you to do is skim through them, but look for common themes. Are there a lot of laws that deal with speeding? Are there a lot of laws that deal with sex? Are there a lot of laws that deal with theft, that deal with land use, that deal with religion? I don't know. What can you see that pops up a lot, and how does Hammurabi try to moderate it? And if you can understand how he tries to moderate it and kind of read between the lines, then you could also see maybe what the exterior motive for doing that is, right? I have on the next slide the preamble. It's also in the book, right? It's also linked. But I wanted to put it here so that you can look at it specifically. And what Hammurabi does in this preamble, in the start to it, is he presents himself to the people of Babylon in a very, very particular way. And he says Shamash gives him the laws, he calls himself a whole variety of names, he talks about why he institutes these laws, and much of this is propaganda, right? It is him selling himself in a particular way. We can recognize that he probably didn't get these laws from a god, but why would he appeal to that? Why would he suggest that he did? Why would people believe that he did? And why would that god be particularly interested in perpetuating the laws that Hammurabi has down here? And if you spend some time thinking about that, one, you can get inside the mind's eye of ancient Babylonians, and two, you can be well on your way to thinking about how to answer the first analytical response, a good chunk of which deals with this very particular question. So, next slide, glance over the preamble. You don't have to read it all. There's a lot there, but skim through it and think about those questions. Then I've got one final slide that's a little goofy to end things with, and we'll be done with our lecture for week 1.